It was completely black. I had a little night vision scope with me just so I could see where I was going. And all along the way, I can hear splashing, big splashing. And I'm thinking, if there's something there, walking out, swimming, splashing right beside me, the loch, I wouldn't even know of it. I could reach out and touch it. But at that point, in the darkness, by myself, I considered that maybe Nessie was tailgating me. Welcome to my colourful life. Hello, my name is Andy McGrath. I'm 47 years old and I'm a cryptozoology researcher, author and field investigator. I've been studying cryptozoology since I was a teenager, but when I turned 40, I'd been working in the city for 7, nearly 8 years, 50 hours a week, had some money saved. And my wife said, well, look, we've got some money. Why don't you look at this monsters thing that you're always talking about and make it into a real project? First of all, I decided I was going to write a TV series, something about the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot in Britain. And then a friend said to me, well, look, if you just write that series and pitch it, somebody could just take that. Why don't you write a book about all these things? And then you'll be able to pitch the book and the series. When I started writing the book, I hadn't ever written anything before. I contacted a few publishers, and one of them, called the CFC in Britain, or the Cryptozoology Fortean Society, said, yes, we'll publish your book, it sounds good. And I started researching, and straight away I started interviewing and blogging about the book that I was writing, and found that people were interested. You know, Americans and Australians and Brits were calling me to come on their podcast shows and talk about what I was researching, and I didn't really know anything more than I'd found out as a teenager being into this subject and was dropped in the deep end. People seemed to like it. Since then, I've had to talk about cryptozoology non-stop. So I was first really involved with the Loch Ness Monster, and I visited Loch Ness for my honeymoon in 2012, and actually I have a wonderful, understanding wife, and just being there on the loch, that really spurred me on to really, dig deep into this and other cryptids. Then I found out there were other lake monsters and sea serpents around the British Isle. Then I found out about the British Bigfoot and dogmen and werewolf sightings and little people sightings and even pterosaurs. And I thought, wow, this really needs a book to be written about it. So I've written 2 books now about this subject, third on the way. The first book, Beasts of Britain, just focuses on creatures in this country and some of the theories surrounding what they could be. The second book specifically looks at hairy humanoid-like creatures all around the world. It's called Hairy Humanoids. And what that book tries to look at is the plausible explanations for the presence of these creatures in diverse places around the world. So what you find with something like the duende, for example, of South America, which is a diminutive dwarf, hairy dwarf-like creature, is reported there. It has a supernatural aspect to it, but people also believe it's a sort of a little person or a Littlefoot of some kind. This also exists in Europe, in Spain and Portugal, which were the primary countries that took their culture to the Americas and transplanted it there. So a cryptid is it's literally an animal that is unknown to science. It's not being catalogued, it's not part of the local catalogue fauna of the world. So for example, the okapi was a cryptid until the early 1900s. And you can imagine somebody describing that. It's kind of like a short-necked giraffe with a brown head and neck and the legs of a zebra. You think the people were crazy, but yet they found this unique, strange animal from the giraffe family there in the Congo. We even discovered a new type of whale in the Gulf of California 2 years ago. Nobody knew it was there, just swimming about, loads of them. When you're looking for cryptids, first of all, you have to find an area that has sightings. If there are no sightings, there's no point in really being there. Then you have to validate the sightings, cross-reference a grid pattern, for instance, where it's most likely that you could find something. Then you've got to get out into the field at a time. I normally choose a time around the same point in which sightings have happened. So if there was a sighting in July 2022, I'm going to go to that same area this year, July 2022. Just because if the animal was there then, it's most likely it's part of a pattern I can follow and use to discover this creature. Then we have to look for things that could be trace evidence of the animal's movement, scat, hairs, footprints, even if you're lucky, broken branches and trees, anything that looks like it hasn't been made by an animal that we know about, like a deer or a sheep or a dog or something like that. And all of that evidence can be collated into your notebook, and of course record everything that you can with the camera to build a picture of this area and perhaps provide proof that something that we haven't discovered yet is moving through and perhaps staying there. The most remote place I've been to find a cryptid is in Galloway Forest Park. Now, there were sightings of the alleged British Bigfoot, which is a wild man-like creature almost similar to Bigfoot, but a lot smaller, around 6.5 feet tall, more Neanderthal-like in appearance. So we were there for about a week in 2019 looking for signs of the British Bigfoot. Unfortunately, we didn't find any, but what we did find is a lot of wildlife and a complete absence of people, so a viable habitat for something like a Bigfoot to live in. I personally have never found evidence of Bigfoot or any other cryptid. I've never had a sighting. However, I've been in touch with people like Jeff Meldrum, professor of anthropology, who has been studying this subject for a long time, and other people like Cliff Barrickman and James Bobofe, who are friends and who've graciously let me look at their casts. But recently, I actually got to see the casts of the orang pendek, which is a possible diminutive upright ape that lives in Sumatra. Now, a good friend of mine, Carl Marshall, from the CFC, he was recently there with a friend looking for the orang pendek, and they found handprints and footprints of the creature that they cast, which are being verified as we speak. To the skeptics, I'd say, well, the okapi wasn't discovered before. The gorilla wasn't discovered. The Komodo dragon wasn't discovered until very, very late. A huge 10-foot-long dragon-like lizard that has venom living on an island in Oceania. And you think, well, if these things can go unnoticed for all that time in this alleged discovered world, what else could be out there? Now, we look at Google Maps and we're zooming on an area, we think we know it. Yeah, even in our own backyard, for example, here in Britain, only 6.9% of the entire landmass is urban sprawl. That includes rural settlements and roads. Everything else is open country. How often do you go off-piste, go off the path in the forest and just walk until you don't know where you are and see what you can see? Thank you for watching my Colourful Life. Please like, share, comment and subscribe.